This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 765, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you who are washing their hands and wearing their masks. Hello, welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week episode 765. My name is Conor Kilpatrick. This is my co-host, Josh Flanagan.
Hello, Connor. I'm Josh, everyone.
We are iFanboy, and every week we read a bunch of comics, and one of us picks our favorite one. We call it the Pick of the Week. We talk about that book, other books, the Patron Pick, listener mail if we have time. We have fun. We give spoilers. Here's your warning. Spoilers are coming in this discussion if they are necessary to the discussion.
Watch out! They're coming.
Josh, you had the pick this week, and I was a little surprised.
Well, you shouldn't have been. Pick of the week is Batman Black and White #2.
You didn't like the first issue.
I didn't.
That's why I was a little
I thought
surprised.
most of it wasn't very good, but the thing here is about this one is that most of it was very good. I would say that probably 4 of the 5 stories I thought, oh, this is fantastic. And even the one that I didn't like that much was still pretty good looking.
I'm curious which one that was.
Well, do you have a guess?
Duel.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. That was my least favorite, too.
Yeah, exactly. So what you have here is 5 short stories. Tom King and Mitch Gerads on The Unjust Judge. That's hard to say. All Cats Are Gray with story and art by Sophie Campbell. The Spill from our pals Gabe Hardme and I can't talk today. I'm
Wow.
Sorry, everyone. Wow.
Hardman.
Gabe Hardme. Gabriel Hardman and Karina Becco. Duel, which is by Dustin. Oh, my God.
Jeez, man.
I don't know.
Did you start drinking before the show? What happened?
Yeah. I'm
A little whiskey in the morning to stay warm?
And I wrote this title down wrong, but David Aja just doing a whole thing that blew me away. And that's
The Devil
kind
is
of
in the
thing.
Details is the name of his story.
Yeah. That the thing was, there's no equivocation of any kind this week on the pick of the week.
Oh, no. It was a great issue.
It was not, no, but I'm saying it was not a big week, but like I read books I like.
It was a good week. I thought it was a solid week of books.
I enjoyed my comics, just like I did last week. It's interesting because, someone wrote in like a couple of weeks ago after we'd had I think 2 weeks in a row of bad comics. And they were like, I don't want to listen anymore. You guys don't like comics. And I was like, that's not what's happening at all. And since then, we had 2 great weeks. And it's just really nice. Like I was reading this book and I go, unless the last 2 stories here are terrible, this is going to be a pick of the week. And I think there was probably one other book or 2 books that could have been, but there was I finished it. I was like, that's it. I never had a question about it.
Well, Duel, the Dustin Weaver story, I know you got me doing it, is I thought interesting to look at. Even if I didn't enjoy the story, I didn't really understand the story. I thought the art was good, and I thought it was interesting. He drew it like Michael Keaton's Batman, and I thought that was fun, and there was value in it at least. It wasn't like a throwaway.
Yeah, there was. That's totally the case. It was thoughtful. I didn't feel like it was way out of left field. So starting off, you got Tom King and Mitch Gerads, and the thing is, that's carrying some weight now, and so the bar is higher for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And I keep wondering okay, can they keep this up? And it was great. I really enjoyed the way it was drawn. I really liked. We talk about Tom King a lot, obviously. But on top of being a good comic book writer and doing this, there's bits in here I was like, this is just good writing. Mm-hmm. If this was in a novel or if this was, it's just really strong, writing above the level of what you get in a lot of comic books or even what makes a lot of comic books great. And so, and then there's a bit where there's a big, it's a single page, and Batman is he's taking his mask off, which I thought was really interesting because he, unlike Steve Rogers in the movies, Batman doesn't take his mask off that much. It's not like a thing that he does.
Right.
And he's sitting with his priest who's buried, and the priest's just like, you can't save me. You can't save anyone, but when you were here, you held my hand, and that's not failure. And there's a pause, and it says that is enough. And I just thought that is beautiful. I had an emotion,
Yeah. So there's an explosion or something at a church, and the priest is buried, and Batman tries to get him out, and he's just not gonna. Priest is mortally wounded, so Batman sits with him as he's dying, and it was really sweet. And he takes the mask off in a moment of vulnerability with the priest.
Yeah.
Who, as you said, says basically, none of us are immortal. We're all gonna die. So ultimately, you can't save anybody. Mm-hmm. Well, I think the benefit of this was Tom King's 9-panel grid gives you a pretty meaty story, because these are short stories, so you get a lot of dialogue here.
And what's also nice is that if you just wanted to repurpose this and put Daredevil in there, works just as well.
It's true.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
No, that's not a knock on it. It's good.
No.
Mitch Gerads
It's crazy. It's really crazy.
I know him. I've known him for a long time, and the sort of distance that he has covered from being a really interesting young artist to being at the level that he's at now, it doesn't fail to impress.
When I moved, I was looking through my comics and getting rid of stuff and keeping stuff and moving stuff around. And I came across my trades for The Activity, which I think was the first time I remember coming across his art.
Like on a
regular book, and it was really great then. But the arc from there to here is mighty long. He's a tour de force now. It's
an amazing bit of development, I think, and not everyone does that, and so it should be. And he's won awards. He's got Eisners. They've also. It's unusual these days that you have a sort of team that works together so often and so fruitfully, and so that I think they're building off of each other, King and Gerads. Yeah. If I'm looking at this and I sort of see the relationship, they seem to really like each other and they really like working with each other. And, and I hope that that's actually the case, because it's one of those things all of a sudden Abnett and Lanning hate each other. And I know that that's not the case in the past with these guys, that, they like each other. And I think it shows. Mm-hmm. It's always a thing in comics when people are happy with their work, it shows. It's just and they're clicking together and it's great. It works the other way too, I guess, sometimes where you got Claremont and Byrne who did really good work together, but then that ends. So moving on, we've got All Cats Are Gray from Sophie Campbell. I don't think this was the greatest story. There's actually not a ton of story here, but as a sort of exercise,
it's a silent little adventure with Catwoman and Batman. I thought it looked beautiful.
It looked beautiful, but it was almost more like a graphic experiment.
Yeah. And
I think it was super successful, and it was just it was a joy to look at.
He's chasing her in the snow. She's got her black outfit on. She can't hide, so she sees a gray cat and changes her suit to gray and is able to hide better against it. It's just a little, as you derisively called last time, tone poem, which I really enjoyed, of Catwoman and Batman. And I thought the negative space art was terrific. I love negative space art. It's one of the reasons why I fell in love with Chris Samnee originally, because his sketches, not his comic work necessarily, but his sketches are all negative space work. So when she's hiding in the backdrop with her suit, I just love that stuff. So
it is beautiful. And I think, when we're talking about the tone poem thing, it works when it works. A lot of times it doesn't. But this was a case where it was very successful. And I can look back through it now and read through it over and over again. It's beautiful. And I really, the negative space thing you're talking about, that last page of that story where she's peering around the corner and the only thing you see is her outline. And then her hands are just, five ink marks, for her claws. It's beautiful. It really is.
And even with Batman, you have his outline with the snow falling in front of it. It was cool.
I mean, that's probably one of the biggest strengths of that costume, is that it just adapts itself so well to those things.
Well, that's always what it says. You can always tell who Batman is, no matter what.
Yeah. And also just I kind of didn't know, it wasn't tons of story, but there was enough in it that I was like, are they a couple here? Are they fighting? You kind of didn't know what's going to happen. You have that tension, obviously, that always exists there. It was great. Then we move along to the Hardman and Becco story, and
I think this is my favorite one. This issue is chock full of terrific stuff, and the David Aja one is terrific. But as a story, I think this is probably my favorite one. Yeah,
and it there's a bit where there's a page turn to the Joker sitting on top of the wreck, and I'm so tired of the Joker as a thing, but that is a beautiful piece of work. And I don't know if it's from being a student of storyboards and classic films and stuff, but Gabe's art just has this really conscious motion to it. And if you look at the line, I mean, I know this is a joke, he came on our show. It's not a joke, but because he means it, but the most important things go in front. Art and comics should go from left to right. And you can see that, I know that's what he believes in, is what he thinks about. You can see it in these comics. So when you look at the bit where, and the lettering works with it too, by Troy Pateri, is that, it goes from the top left to the bottom right in that one panel. And all the lines lead you in that direction.
Right.
And it's not just a beautiful drawing with amazing textures. And he puts, there's so much in this, in the drawings, in the art.
It's like Gerads' stuff. It's a whole world. It's textured. There's no mistaking either one of these guys when you look at their art.
No.
But this is a great story just to give the context. It's the Batmobile sort of flips over. He has an accident and he's stuck in upside down in like a spillway or a urban river.
Yeah, the LA River. If you
yeah, and he's trapped. He's sort of pinned in the Batmobile in the river as it's raining and the river's rising. So it's essentially he's going to drown. He can't lift the car off himself. He's stuck. He tries to winch it off, and that doesn't work. And then the Joker shows up. And what I really liked about the story was they didn't play into the romantic aspect of their relationship, and I mean romantic in terms of not necessarily love, but where it's like we're two sides of the same coin, and I want you around. It's like, no, I want to see you die. I'm a psychopath, and so I'm going to sit here and watch you die. Mm-hmm. I like that. It was a different take that we've seen lately on Batman and Joker.
And just as a Joker design, I love it.
Yeah.
It's a little combination of sort of what makes the classic Jokers work, but just sort of realistic, a little more like an actual face.
Right. Like a man.
Yeah, but it's still got all the lanky, skinny stuff. It's just beautiful. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do this story in the driving rain with water. There's no shortcuts taken with this art, and it's got the sort of the whiteout splatter kind of things, and then there's places with this duotone. And it's just it's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Moving on over to Duel by Dustin Weaver. Again, I think you sort of mentioned it, and graphically. Design-wise, we are living in Anton Furst's Gotham, clearly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the character and the Gotham design.
Yeah, the story, I don't think I understood it. I don't.
I'll be honest, I didn't. Batman's up against the white version, meaning it's a guy who's
negative space version of himself.
All white costume, white face,
his eyes,
and then he stumbles on this UFO. Inside is like a Batcave with the all-white version of his father and Robin. I'm not afraid to say I don't understand it.
I don't understand. So in that way, I don't think it necessarily worked. I think it was imaginative. I think it was reaching very far, and that's not a bad thing. And it was beautiful. Again, it wasn't skimped on. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
So even that it wasn't, I wouldn't probably give it incredibly high marks. A for effort. And then you go from that to The Devil Is in Detail by David Aja. And I'm far enough into the thing now that I had forgotten his name was on the front. And so I see the first sort of a shot of Batman in a medium panel, and I will explain what the whole thing is in a second. Yep. And I looked at it and I went, is this Jorge Fornes? Is this? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh no, this is David Aja, because you could see his name sort of on the side. And the whole thing is done in newspaper strip format. Mm-hmm. That spans like a double page spread. It's done like the daily comics used to be, and they're dated, October 1949. It goes through, I think it's Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, because there's no Sunday strip.
Right.
Which I was really thought we'd get to like a big, obviously not color, but I guess we can't do color.
That,
so yeah.
I liked that. It was just like, these are the daily strips. And I remember when I was a kid, there'd be the Spider-Man strip in there. And it's funny because we didn't get the paper regularly, so I would always get it, and I'd get, I'd be super excited to read it, but I wouldn't get any story out of it.
We'll talk about lost art that people who are much younger than us don't understand at all. Was the comic strip stories. I mean, I was a newspaper family, so we always had the newspaper. So I followed all those stories for better or worse, or Doonesbury or Calvin and Hobbes. Obviously, you'd follow these stories in little 3-4 panel strips every day.
And also like. There were masters doing this stuff.
Yeah.
That's another thing I think.
And there were serious ones like Spider-Man and like there was the reporter one. I don't remember, but because as a kid I liked the sillier ones more as a kid. But yeah, you got a story. It was like it was a legitimate, and some of those things were epic. Like for better or worse, followed this family for like decades as they went from kids to adults. The parents died. Like it was a whole epic. I mean, they still exist because I still see them in papers, but not to the extent that. Culturally they didn't, before. Yeah. But anyway, I love the format of this a lot.
Right. And I think the thing, it was incredibly surprising. So first of all, to see like he drew, wrote, he lettered, he did the whole thing. And it just, once I adjusted, because it took a second, like, whoa, what am I doing? I did. I was so impressed because, they did the Wednesday comics, but this is a lost thing. It's almost in a way, it's not new, but I was like, someone's doing something different.
Yeah.
Than I see all the time. And at, his graphic style, it lends itself so well to this. I mean, it's gorgeous. in a completely different way than Gerads and Hardman's is gorgeous. It's almost blotchy, and it's what's not there, but those shapes just form, something. And then the light, there's a shot where Batman is sitting like in the cave, and there's a beam of light that goes through that makes the microscope into a silhouette, and all, it's all old timey. So
it takes place in the 40s, so all that was great too. The technology and the cars and the language, it was fully realized. Really,
yeah, totally.
Really, there was little things I loved, that like the body language, like Batman at one point towards the end when he's walking up the stairs, and that's the same image they used for the final page of the comic, or his bio page. Like he's sort of slump shouldered. He's not like he's not a larger than life character here. He's a man, and he's not exaggerated, and it's just a little bit of body language detail. He doesn't look like a superhero. It's just beautiful. And you don't really ever see Batman that well. He's mostly silhouette. Yeah. He's mostly shadow, which adds to the fun. It's just great. It was just really, really great.
It was totally like unexpected and novel and beautiful and well done. And it just works as a piece. Mm-hmm. Also just a great nod to sort of a forgotten art form that I don't think we think about very much anymore.
Yeah. This was a terrific issue. I like the first issue a lot, but this was terrific.
Oh, I mean, to me, it wasn't even close. Like this was just a tour de force. And I saw there's the lineup for the next one. I was like, well, that's not going to be lit.
They did kind of put all their heavy hitters into one issue here.
I know. I honestly, I don't understand why this wasn't the first issue.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't even make sense.
It is kind of strange. You think, yeah.
Because this is anybody with half an inkling about what's good in comics is going to see the front of this and go, that's a thing. It's great. It was really delightful. There's just not enough David Aja in our world, but I think that might be better in the long run.
He's been doing that Seed book that we did.
Yeah. But I don't think it comes out very regularly. Cause
I don't think it comes out at all, but I think he's working.
I think that's why I lost track of it. Yeah. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It's just that I forgot about it every time. So I don't know what's come out. Anyway. That's your pick of the week. It's 5 stars all the way. The worst part of it was pretty damn good. Yeah, no question about that one for me.
So last week we didn't talk about any Future State books, which is totally fine. This week we're going to talk about Superman versus Imperious Lex #1 by Mark Russell, Steve Pugh, Romulo Fiordo Jr., and Carlos Mangal. This is actually, on the whole, like the books were pretty fun, but again, it's the same problems we talked about before. The overall world that's not that interesting. The way they're presenting the story is not compelling. The characters are not that compelling. But as stories, I thought this week was probably the strongest week for Future State. But we'll talk about this one, I think, because of Mark Russell.
Yeah, well, to me, this is Mark Russell and Steve Pugh, the Flintstones team, and I'm used to his stories taking place in a different thing. So I just thought, okay, this is the world they're in. Let's do this story. And I guess it refers to an earlier story where Lex leaves Earth and takes over a planet and becomes its ruler. And so that's what the situation is here.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. It's a reference to a thing that happened at another time, from what I understand, which I learned because I was trying to find a link to show a friend of mine. I was like, you need to read this. And then that's why I read that. I was like, oh, it's just, a lot of people listen to us and I'm woefully uninformed. Anyway, I don't have a regular Mark Russell series right now.
Right, yeah.
And I missed it. Like a lot. Early on he did a couple of Lex Luthor stories early on, and I think because so much of his stuff has to do with capitalist businesses and that sort of stuff.
Lex was a major player in the Wonder Twins book.
Yeah, exactly. But so he always sort of goes back to that. And the first short story he ever did in mainstream comics, I don't remember what it was in, but it was a Lex Luthor story. Mm-hmm. And I remember back then it was like, this is odd. He doesn't quite have it yet. And through this one, I thought it was a really nice balance of what you expect out of a mainstream comic with bits of his stuff. Even more so than, he could be a little wacky in Wonder Twins in a way that he couldn't in this one. But there was some really funny stuff just right away in this. Like, there's a character, there's a United Planets that is started up in Metropolis, and there's even another little comment on that, is that the people in Metropolis don't necessarily like it. Earth for Earthlings and stuff like that. Like the UN. Yeah. There's a character that's like, it's a bowl. It's a cylinder of glass with a bunch of sand or liquid in it.
Yeah.
And that is the character. And at one point they're talking about what to do to Lex, and he just goes, drown him in sand. It's exactly. And then earlier that the first time that character, no, it's not even a head, it's a jar on a stick.
Yeah, and it's got to be sand in it. Yeah.
And he just says, I love that new building smell. He goes, I have no olfactory sense. It's just great jokes.
So this is the future. I would assume further in the future than the other books, that, as you said, Lex has gone off and he has his own planet, Lexor, and the United Planets is meeting to decide what to do about Lex. They have a council being led by one of the Guardians. Mm-hmm. Lois is on the council. She's the rep for the United States, or for the Earth, and they decide to send Superman to the planet. I really liked it. The nerd in me was like, Superman's hair shouldn't be gray, but whatever.
I had that thought, but then again, what is all bets are off.
Right, that's what I mean. I was like, whatever. It bugged me for a minute.
We got late middle age bouncy Lois, right. Like she's got her silver fox thing going on. Their relationship was good. One of my favorite little details is, hey, it's a good Superman. Like, it's a clear, like, Superman trying to do the right thing, even though it doesn't seem like the obvious thing or the thing that everybody wants. And I think that always is good in these stories. There's this one little detail where Lex has apparently like a face mask on.
Well, his hands are like that too, and I wonder I think he's probably enhanced some way. It's probably some sort of cybernetics.
But I always took it like he's got something on his face that makes him look younger than he is.
Yeah. Possibly.
Like that's the way that I was looking. And I thought there was going to be sort of a payoff for it, but it wasn't. And I actually liked that there wasn't. Just like, what is it? Because, you get the idea.
We have another issue, so they got another chance to do that.
Yeah, just behind and under that mask. Like maybe he's a little more decrepit and wrinkly. But, he has it on there's a statue of him there, and all the people like him. And they like him, but because their lives are good because he's pillaging from other places.
He's Dr. Doom, basically. He sends his robots out to pillage other planets, takes their wealth. Yeah. The people on this planet have jobs building the robots. The wealth comes back. That's
colonialism. That's all that's happening there.
Right.
It's great. It was a really enjoyable. Steve Pugh. Really funny in the other stuff, but this is just him doing, straight up superhero stuff, and a lot of times in Aliens, and it looked great.
Right.
It was fun. This could have been my pick of the week on a different week for sure.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, we're at the point now where you've got King in Black going on, and you've got Future State going on, and
not a lot.
Yeah, but if you can pick and choose some gems out of it, there's still stuff to enjoy in there.
Yeah, you got to find the cracks, and there's certainly things to enjoy in the cracks. Let's talk about Fantastic Four 28. This is the culmination of the. I don't know what the storyline's called. This is the final issue of the storyline with the Forever Gate and the problems that involve.
What's the lady? The end of the world, the entropy thing? The main villain in this. Anyway, to me...
The Griever?
The Griever.
Is that her name?
When you have a comic book and it features the ultimate nullifier, you got to talk about the comic book.
Right.
Because it's a thing that actually isn't overused. And I like that.
I just want to say from the straight up, like RB Silva, this is like RB Silva's best issue in a while. This issue is full of big superhero stuff. It's high in the gosh scale.
Very.
I want to also compliment Jesus Obertoff, the colorist, because this is like a coloring tour de force. There's so much cosmic stuff going on here. There's bright colors, and I was really impressed by the way this book looked. I liked the story, although there's one thing about it that I thought didn't necessarily work, or I thought was a missed opportunity, but I thought overall this was terrific, and mostly because the art was amazing.
I think that's true, but I also think that like you really got some good highs and lows of the family dynamic in this one. Like the what is the nature of Franklin? That's this outstanding and really dramatic and interesting question that has sort of been going through this the whole time. I think we all know that he's not really out of powers.
No.
And that's going to be a thing, but at the same time, that contrasting to the fact that he's so uber powerful, like in a way that, and there's a little bit here where he's like, I have a feeling I'm going to see you at the end of the world, and we know from that other, I forget what the history of the Marvel Universe,
and Thor also.
Okay, so we know that he's around for that.
Yeah,
this really big Fantastic Four comments. Then you got the thing where Johnny just goes in to the really dangerous things that doesn't think he's going to come back from to save everybody. And then the last story that he goes, basically the Griever takes 4 members of the Fantastic Four.
Everybody but Johnny. So
everybody but Johnny.
Ben,
so
Reed, and Sue.
in instead of that to their day at the end of their lives, like the thing that actually kills them. And the last one where, Ben goes to save Reed and he finds Ben Grimm, who's finally had enough of Reed beating the shit out of him. And I was like, that's good drama right there.
So the idea is that Ben will kill Reed.
Yeah.
Eventually. And that was where I thought there should have been some sort of payoff to that.
I just don't think we're there. They mentioned it. Like, in fact, like there's a point where like, I think Sue says, well, what happened to you? And he's like, well, we can talk about it some other time.
I don't mean a payoff. What I mean is like you come out of that scenario where you see that you're going to kill your best friend and there should have been some sort of either who cares, it's not going to happen, or it should be haunting him. I just thought there should have been like a look from Ben to Reed or something. Like, what are you going to do that's going to make me want to kill you? Because that's what future Ben says is he's going to finally do something. He's going to go too far, and then the day comes you're going to kill him and you won't think twice. And I thought it was a great, powerful scene. And then I just thought there should have been something, maybe even in the background where Ben's looking at Reed or something where he's like, what's going on here? Because that's a pretty traumatic thing to see.
Yeah,
even for a guy like Ben.
There was that little capper, like I said, but I can't imagine that's not.
Right.
I mean, Dan Slott would be a terrible writer to come up with something that beautiful and then just leave it on the floor.
And at first it kind of bugged me out because I don't, like you don't want to see like these characters hate each other, but also and then I thought about all the things that basically the way they've made Reed since Civil War, and that pretty much tracks with the characterization they've gone with since then.
Yeah, no, and I think it hurts, but I like it. I still really like it as a comment on the American nuclear family or whatever, and especially because this came out of the 60s, that idea of what a father is like in that situation is this Don Draper kind of thing to it, and ultimately he wants to be a good guy, but I think it's great that he's not entirely whitewashed in that idea of being perfect. Mm-hmm. Like his passions will maybe, the thing is supposed to be all about the family, and you can see how, Sue is the mother and she will do anything for her kids and her family, and Johnny, is a fierce protector, and so is Ben Grimm, and Reed wants to be all those things, but he's the one who is super genius, who knows everything, but he's the one who has the most weaknesses.
Oh, I don't want him to be perfect. I just think there's a leap from not perfect to murder.
Right, but that gives you an area to play in.
Sure.
It doesn't mean, it's like anything, just because they say that's the end of the world.
Oh yeah, we're never going to get to that point, but it should. Anyway, it's not a big deal. It was a minor thing. I thought this was a great issue. Also, we are not mentioning.
But the fact that like there's, I'm going to say there's 2 or 3 pages in this thing that you and I can then talk about for several minutes, and not really know what to make of it, but know it's good. I think it's great. That's great. I don't know why Dan Slott is 5 different people. I don't understand, but man, he is in his spot here. This is the best Fantastic Four I've read in years.
And great Silver Surfer who comes along with
absolutely.
the Ultimate Little Fire, wasn't caught up in any of the I'm all black and dying from the thing. I'm just classic Silver Surfer, and really great. He's sort of I don't want to say he's Tom Hanks in Family Ties, but he's sort of the uncle that comes along, He's a member of the team in a way, the family in a way.
An alcoholic?
I don't know. I was just trying to think of like the uncle who shows up and causes trouble, but
right.
He's not quite to that extent. Strange Adventures number 8. So now we are 3/4 of the way through the story. And I still don't know what to make of it.
I think I know that
which I don't think is a bad thing.
At the end, there was parts of it. I think there was parts of it that I the scenes with Mr. Terrific and Batman were really great and fun to read, and they're interrogating a picked. But the other bits, I find the Adam Strange stuff to be very confusing. Such to the point where it's almost not compelling because it's so hard to pin down. But again,
well, I think we're getting closer. We're getting closer to some answers. Mr. Miracle didn't come together until the 12th issue, where suddenly it all made sense. So I'm not saying he should do that every time, but I can't really knock it until it's all said and done, because once the pieces fell in place in Mr. Miracle, it all made sense. But here, you really get the sense of the black label here, because there's this worldwide disaster. The Picts have invaded Earth and destroyed Phoenix, and you're just like, well, this couldn't happen in continuity. All of his books are basically out of continuity, whether they're in black label or not. But I like that nature of it. It felt like an event without it being an event. It was like a big deal. Like this, I know you're annoyed by the alien invasions, but I thought this worked. And I thought Batman and Mr. Terrific are a fun pairing, and it's fun that there's a guy smarter than Batman that Batman is almost his sidekick.
I know. I love that. That's really wonderful. Like there's the alien invasions and there's your alien invasions. We said this about, some comics, do it well and it doesn't matter what it is, but there is heft to this part of the invasion, meaning that there's a backstory and we understand. And again, there's no clear cut who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. Over in Marvel, you know who the bad guy is. Like you don't really have to think about it very much. You just beat the people coming in. This, like, are the Picts bad? Like, is this a reaction to a thing? We were talking about this earlier, but is this more like Northern Ireland? I don't know.
Right.
And that makes it interesting. And I think the final thing that really got me in this was that a lot of Tom King's books are about PTSD.
Yeah.
And this one really is about PTSD.
Right.
And there's a scene where, Adam Strange loses his shit. And to me, I know that there's some autobiographical stuff going in, or at least experiential stuff. And it's really tough to read in not in a bad way, but I just I really felt for that character and the family at that instance, because, if you've been through shit, it changes the perspective on everything, and you want to be a good guy and you can't always, and then you feel guilt and all the whole thing. And I just thought that's really poignant.
The one piece I haven't figured out yet, I mean, there's a lot of pieces I haven't figured out yet, but the one thing I haven't figured out yet is why he closes every issue with a quote from a comic creator, how that ties in. Mr. Miracle, again, is very much about the nature of comics, I think, ultimately. And so, at first glance, this feels like this is very much about the nature of PTSD and war and the stories you tell yourself. But the fact that each issue ends with the classic, like, Golden Age comic creators quote, there was a Kirby quote before, there's a Jack Davis one in this one, makes me wonder. I just don't know yet. Again, we've got 4 more issues to go.
There's no chance that it's not thoughtful. There's not.
No. He just doesn't throw them in for no reason. There's a reason why they're in there. I just don't know yet.
Well, I mean, what's the thing with other writers? Some, with less talented writers, sometimes that does happen. Like, somebody thinks they're being poignant, but they're not. And that'll pay off, but maybe not for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it won't pay off for us, but there will be something to it that's at least interesting. I don't know what's going on, but I enjoyed it and I'm impressed by it. We've given that review like 2/3 of the comics the dude's ever read.
Yeah, because mostly it pays off. Vision paid off and Mr. Miracle paid off. I don't think it worked in Heroes in Crisis, but this is a much more compelling and interesting look at PTSD than that was. We'll find out at the end. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. Over the break, Post Americana came out from Image. So issue 2 came out this week. This is the book by Steve Skroce with colors by Dave Stewart. And I just wanted to mention that this is much more what I was hoping for from Undiscovered Country, the book from Snyder and
Charles Soule
that I ended up dropping.
Camuncoli?
I think so. The idea here is there's been some sort of a disaster, and so we're in the post-disaster period of America. And it's like Mad Max meets like The Walking Dead. But it's sci-fi in the way it's like in the future, so the technology is better. But it's not sci-fi in like there's no monsters or mutants.
Hard sci-fi.
Yeah, so it's a little raw. It's got a little bit of Rick Remender streak running through it, because in this issue the 2 main characters get captured by a roving gang of orgiastic cannibals. And so it's that kind of thing. There's these double page spread of their like giant party where they're eating people and having sex everywhere. And so that felt very Rick Remender-esque. I've been enjoying it. It keeps skirting to the edge of me going, okay. Like, it's a little gratuitous, but I have been enjoying it. There's a mountain where the elites escaped to from whatever the disaster was, and that's where the quote-unquote government is. And so there's a band of people who are fighting back in the mountain, destroying their technology. And then you've got these 2 people here who are trying to survive on the outside, get back to the mountain where they've been waylaid. And it scratches that strange Mad Maxian itch, of post-society disaster. I'm not reading, Walking Dead's over. There's nothing else I'm reading like that right now, where we sort of get to explore our anxieties about society collapsing in a fun sci-fi way and not in a monsters, like, it's not unbelievable. Nothing happening here is unbelievable. When I was reading Undiscovered Country, the first time like a giant creature showed up, I was like, oh, okay, that's not really what I'm into. But here it's just humans being terrible to each other. Not all of them, but the bad guys are that. And so it's, in that sense, enjoyable. Steve Skroce is sort of a legend of his time. Doesn't work a lot in comics, and is incredible. And the Dave Stewart colors are great. I've enjoyed these first 2 issues. It's been surprising. The characters have been a little surprising.
Was the first one a while ago?
It was while we were on break, like a month ago.
Oh, okay. So I wasn't sure if I'd read the first one because I kind of missed it, but that sounds interesting.
If you're into like Mad Max sci-fi stuff with a bit more realistic take on post-American society, this would be the book for you.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So let's take a quick break here and talk about how you can help support the show. We are running long. That's okay. Good comics to talk about. Hey, patreon.com/iFanboy is the main way people help the show. We keeps the lights on, keeps the bills paid, keeps the show going, and we do appreciate that. And over the past few years, the patrons have unlocked a lot of content that you're enjoying. You at home listening. They unlocked the Talk Splodes and the Book Splodes and the Media Splodes, the YouTube content that's going back up, our old video shows is going up there All that stuff's been unlocked by the patrons. We have the monthly hangouts with them. There's all kinds of fun stuff that they have created for the viewing pleasure or listening pleasure of the people out there. And our pleasure as well. We enjoy doing those shows, even if they're hard to schedule. Our next stretch goal is a new show. A fourth show. Jeez. It would actually be it'd be our fifth regular show. That's crazy. Covering the classic G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s, one episode at a time. And then after that, the next stretch goal after that is a quarterly barbecue and email video show that we'll start producing again. So there's all kinds of fun things that could happen, and they do happen over at patreon.com. They also enjoy the Facebook group. They enjoy the Discord server. They're both really fun communities, and as Josh talked about last time, the Discord server really feels like the old Revision 3 forum days if you've been around that long. It's a healthy, fun community with lots of conversation going on. So if you're not a patron and you want that again, you can check that out. If you are a patron and you don't know about it, just go to the patron page and search Discord, and you'll find links to how to join that.
I got to say, like, one of the things that I think Conor and I, and Ron to that extent, have always been really proud of is sort of that we've always had this amazing community. It's just not, it never became that thing that so many other communities do. And you know, it's not great that part of it is sort of behind a paywall, but, you know, it's low stakes to entry, and I think it's totally worth it.
Yeah. It's really fun. Josh was all up in there this week.
Yeah, and then I forgot about it again. I gotta like set it so it gives me little notifications that stuff's come up. Otherwise, I don't see the thing. Yeah, that's okay. That way, I'm not wasting all of my time.
So it's fun. It's fun there. So check that out, patreon.com/iFanboy. Also, if you want to buy some merch, iFanboy.threadless.com. You can find our t-shirts there, our iFanboy logo, our Herm Pick the Week podcast ratings. If one is Electro, GDAT, Nothing Makes Sense, Nothing Matters, and Stay Home and Read Comics. All those designs are there for t-shirts, but also you can get them on all kinds of household items, mugs or bath mats or notebooks or whatever you want to get them on, but primarily people buy t-shirts, which is great. And you can get those at ifanboy.threadless.com. ifanboy.com/support is how you can help us out directly via PayPal. Many people do that. They don't want to become patrons, and that's totally fine. They don't want to buy merch. That's also totally fine. We all have enough stuff. But if you just want to throw a couple dollars in the tip jar, that's where you can do it, ifanboy.com/support. Finally, ifanboy.com/Amazon. That's where you can find our books, blood books, and a general Amazon link. And we thank everyone who does all those things. You really do keep the show going and help us keep the bills paid, and we do appreciate that. That's why there's still a show. So thank you.
Let's start zooming.
More anthologies.
Yeah, this is going to take me longer to read off who did it than it is to talk about the book. But did you read Marvel 4?
I did. You told me to, and so I did. I read 4 and I read 1. My goal was to read all 4 of them, and I didn't get a chance to.
I don't think you have to.
No, it's an anthology. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's an anthology. They're little stories.
There's a wraparound story that the opening and closing with the dream guy. That's in all the issues, but it doesn't make a difference. These are just anthology stories,
which isn't great. I don't think you're missing out much. No. So there is a story here by Daniel Acuna, an artist who I really love whenever I see him. You know, just a high on the gosh scale.
Hold just real quick. This is tied to the Marvels books. This is overseen by Busick and Ross. Ross does the covers. He does the art on the wraparound story. Busick also, I guess, writes that one or helps write it, and he's also been involved. So this is overseen. It's got the branding. Yep. And ultimately, it's almost like classic out of continuity takes on these characters that could be taking place anytime. In the first issue, there was a terrific Busick written 60s Avengers story with the classic team.
Yep.
That's what this is.
So the Acuna story is, aliens invade Earth, apparently, I guess, in the 19th century, and they win. And so we shoot to the future, and the aliens have taken over Earth, and like, this place is great, and they hold gladiator battles, and
it's almost like roller derby racing gladiator battles
with the world from Thor Ragnarok,
right?
But all the gladiators are the versions of the Marvel characters. So there's a Beast who also has snickety claws, and there's a fantastic Prince Valiant.
Well, I was thinking He-Man.
Yeah, that too.
He's got the whole outfit.
On a 70s trike bike. There's the Thing. It's
the Thing with skinny cybernetic legs like Stiltman.
It's really fun. And then after that, there's this really sort of silly story, Where Monsters Smell, written and drawn by Hilary Barta.
Well, do you know the history of this? I looked it up.
But these are all the Kirby monsters.
So Dr. Druid, the character, the C or D level Avenger that we love, was created by Kirby. Mm-hmm. But he's originally called Dr. Droom. And this was in the early, sort of pre-Marvel Silver Age.
Before 1962.
And I think it was created in 61. And so this is Dr. Droom facing off against all the Kirby monsters. And so what happened was at the end of that, they didn't use him again, and then they basically decided to bring him back, but then they changed him to Doctor Strange, and then eventually, they brought him back as Dr. Druid. But this is all Kirby creations, Fin Fang Foom, and
I didn't catch that part about Dr. Droom, but I assume.
No, I looked that up afterwards, and there's one bit where he's reading a book and it says by Dr. Druid. But
right.
I was like, there's got to be something here, so I went and looked it up, and that was
so. But the way that we're just describing it, like it sounds like it's a series. It's a very silly story.
It's totally silly, and I thought it was hilarious.
It's a not Brandech kind of thing.
He gets a pink slip from Mr. Fantastic, which is sort of meta. Like he's gone. It's time for the classic Marvel.
Really fun. And then finally, there's a Thing story here that is written by Alex Ross and drawn by Sal Abenati, who is his art dealer, I believe.
He is. Yep. Art dealer, model for Shazam.
Yep, really nice little Thing story with a really stylistic imagery in it that I also enjoyed. It was a great little issue. Again,
well, I'm glad you put this on my radar because I hadn't been reading this.
Yeah, I was like looking for something. Let's check this out. And so that was delightful. Shang-Chi wrapped up this miniseries, the Gene Yang and DK Ruan art, and I wavered on this, but I enjoyed the ending. I think
this
when
issue was
came together,
really good.
Yeah,
I like the first issue, 2, 3, 4. I kind of was like, all right, this is okay, but I thought this was a strong wrap up.
And it's nice because it does lead into what will be more. If it just ended with this and sort of put Shang-Chi on a new, level where they could use him in something else. There's that last page that leaves no doubt. It's just the three characters with their arms and they're going, "This is a new era," like your greatest anime. But there's going to be another miniseries, The Return of Shang-Chi.
I thought the action was strong. I thought the characterizations really worked. I thought
there were some real
did well.
Nice character turns too. Like he speaks to his dead uncle and he's like, "You don't understand yet. Do it this way." And I think that paid off really well. Family drama, all that stuff. It ended up really well. I was really happy about that.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying Captain Marvel. It's Captain Marvel 25, Kelly Thompson, Lee Garbett, Balan Ortega on the art, and I love a time displaced story. And this is Captain Marvel. We're deep in. This is part 4 of this particular story. Captain Marvel got zapped to the future, and so she said to team up with Thor's daughter and Rhodey's daughter and Emma Frost, who is in her diamond form because she doesn't age while she's in her diamond form, to fight Namor's asshole son, who has taken over the planet. It's just been super fun. I love these kind of stories where we get to see a possible future and a modern hero has to react to all the craziness that's going on. And we got a lot of backstory here, which sort of filled in how this all happened. And I've just been enjoying the hell out of this. It was an incredibly fun issue. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been good. This series has been good. Did you ever go back to read it?
I have them piled up to read, and it is a certain, because I'm 25 now. It's gotten a little like, ugh. So I think I'm
just start with this arc.
Maybe that would be a good.
You don't need to go back.
I think
the book is good, but if you're just worried about starting, start with this arc.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention X-Men 17, Jonathan Hickman, Brett Booth, and I wanted to mention it because
I saw that name and I went, whoa.
So Brett Booth has been on DC for a while. I think he has. He might have been DC exclusive. He would pop up every now and then in DC. I'm not really a huge Brett Booth fan, but strangely, it kind of worked here because as a child of the 90s comics-wise, it kind of, to me, is how the X-Men should look. Like, there's a weird part of my lizard brain that goes, yeah, that's how the X-Men should look. Because for so long, that's how the X-Men look.
That dude gets mad at people. You should watch it.
I know. Look, he's not a bad artist. And I'm telling you, I like this from an art standpoint. It from the school of Jim Lee.
I understand. No,
clearly, he clearly is. There's no denying that. And
Sonny Go is like a colorist of that. I don't know that era, but that ilk. I want to say I've seen that name on like specific guys.
So there's a lizard part of my brain from that part of time where I was, 12, 13, reading all the Jim Lee X-Men books. This is sort of very comfortable. And also, for some reason, Cyclops and Jean Grey decided to put on their original X-Factor costumes.
Good costumes.
Great costumes. And there's a big splash page with them. And I was like, wow, there's a 13-year-old me going, awesome. Mm-hmm. It's not how the modern X-Men look. And it's not, sort of Joss Whedon put a stake in the heart of that with Cassaday and changed sort of the way that the X-Men were portrayed visually. But to me, this was like kind of comfortable.
I miss, like, I'm the same age as you, obviously, but like I wasn't reading comics in that time, and I got out. I was 12. I stopped reading just before that.
Your jittery smoking hand. I gotta get out.
I mean, the fact is, though, I have the first Jim Lee X-Men.
Yeah.
and I tried to.
Well,
read
X-Men
this,
number one.
Get
I
it?
assume you mean not this first issue.
No, not number one. I mean the first Uncanny X-Men.
Oh,
it's the Jubilee story.
You could sell
I
that
think.
one.
I have it. I wanted to like it, and I tried to, but I still wasn't able to get into it back then. Like the closest I got was I was really into McFarlane.
Yeah. Listen, I want to make it clear. I in no way thought this was bad.
Okay.
Again, like it's a style that didn't work for me. Like when he was first, say, drawing like the Titans, the Teen Titans.
Right.
But like for the X-Men, it works.
You're down.
I don't know why. I do know why, because my 13-year-old in the back goes, "Hey, that's cool."
So you're still reading the X-Men book, right?
I'm reading X-Men. Yeah. I'm reading Marauders. And I'm reading Wolverine.
Are you enjoying like the main X-Men book? Are you?
Well, I'm a little
help?
confused. Like it's the same conversation with Marauders. Like all the post Ten of Swords stuff is confusing, but I do enjoy it.
Okay.
Because for a while it was like the most sort of straightforward Hickman-y part. It was like sort of where the main story was going through, but now it's like, wait, what's going on? So it's I'm on the edge. As always. So those are the books we're going to talk about. A lot of books came out this week. We're already super long, but we have to talk about the Patron Pick. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Every single patron can vote to add a book to the rundown, and we got a large influx of patrons, and we got a large influx of voting patrons, because not all the patrons vote. It's been great. I think this week we had the most number of books ever to receive votes.
Wow.
Like 36 books got votes, which was great.
But it was decided pretty early.
Yeah, it was a blowout. Savage Avengers number 17 won because, as we said on our Patreon page, much like GameStop, we had a cabal of people in the Discord channel decided they were going to push Savage Avengers through, because there's one guy every month who goes, "What about Savage Avengers?" and no one ever goes for it. So this week they decided to go get behind him, which I appreciate, and vote for it. And I'm glad they did, because A, it wasn't a number one, and B, it was a lot of fun.
It was a ton of fun.
This was a King in Black story, and I saw other people read it who hadn't read it because it was the Patron Pick, and I think what was great about it was, if this is a crossover, theoretically speaking, I don't even know if this happens anymore. Theoretically speaking, a crossover issue should be bringing in new readers to your book, because some point in time, Marvel Zombies bought every issue of the crossover into Secret Wars. So that was the idea, was, well, crossovers will bring new readers to your title. So it should be accessible enough to someone who's never read it before, because theoretically, a King in Black fan will be picking this up. In that sense, it worked. I haven't read it. I think I read the first issue of this book and never read it anymore, and I had no problem with it.
From a pitch concept, I was like, I don't want to read that.
Right.
It was like, Conan the Barbarian is in the Marvel Universe and such and such.
Oh, yeah, I don't want that.
But sometimes that instinct is wrong. Same thing. I don't think that this rates terribly high on the Gosh scale. It's not good old superheroes. It's a different type of superhero book, but it did have something that I like about comics, and it was very silly.
Oh, I was very conflicted. Like, I did enjoy reading it, and I legitimately laughed out loud to the point where I had to put the iPad down when Conan kicked Deadpool through the bars of the jail.
I did too.
I literally had to put the iPad down. Be reborn into freedom. I literally had to put it down. So there are things like, do I want to read any more of this? Probably not. Like, there was a part where they murdered all the prison guards, and I was like, are we supposed to just be okay with that?
I mean,
but
it's a Conan book and it's Deadpool, so like there's precedent. Conan has no time for any of those things.
So the story here is, I don't know who the Savage Avengers are. We only really get two characters here, and the third guy who is not on the team. Conan has been arrested. It takes 4 guards to throw him in the cell. He's been arrested for assaulting a police dog, I guess, outside of a bar. And then Deadpool's already in jail, which I thought was funny. Shut up, Deadpool. And so they have to break out, and Conan realizes that Deadpool can heal really, really fast. And so he shoves him through the bars.
Be reborn into freedom.
And so that he can heal on the other side and then get them out, which is what happens. And then they escape only to immediately get attacked by these symbiotes from King in Black storyline. And there's a flashback to Conan. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah, I was really
Kev
glad
Walker
to see
on
Kev
art.
Walker.
Jerry Duggan. We didn't mention the creative team. Jerry Duggan, Kev Walker, Hava Tartaglia, and Travis Lanham. And, it's just all, these are all pros.
The thing about Kev Walker is I just like the graphic style of it. Sometimes it's hard to follow him around because he always they stick him on books that I don't necessarily want to read or know about. Mm-hmm. So you kind of got to hunt him down. But he doesn't look like Steve Dillon's work, but there's hints of it in there. If you look at the scene that we were talking about where he's shoving, that feels like a very Preacher page when he's shoving Deadpool through the thing, and you cut back to the hardened criminals in there, and they're reverting their eyes, and the one guy's throwing up.
Right.
It's funny. It's he can do action, he can do humor, he can sort of do the melodramatic that sort of remembers that that stuff is just a little bit silly, and it's more fun a lot of times when you acknowledge that, if it's a quality artist and writer.
Yeah, for sure.
It was really fun.
But like, I don't
agree.
want necessarily Conan the Barbarian in the modern times walking around permanently, but I don't have to work to read it.
It's not. I mean, it isn't permanent. That's not going to be a thing. So go
Well, you
for
know what
now,
I mean.
and as long as you don't have to rationalize it with everything else, then you can go that way. And I think
Like as a one-off, I was fine with that one-off tale we read. That was cool, but like to move him, I assume for 17 issues into the Marvel universe, it's not
17 issues and on and counting is a long time to sort of do that. So it would have to be very good to have that not get old. And I do have a feeling that if I had been reading this whole time, we would have gotten over it.
Right.
As a single issue, I might think about reading the next one. It was really fun, but I just know that eventually I'll be like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
You know,
which is fine.
it'll take 6 issues, but that's also great. That's fine. Who cares?
No one is required to read a comic forever.
Mm-mm.
Unless you've got the tattoo on you.
Nah, I stopped reading. No, I am reading that Green Lantern book.
So ratings on the Patron Pick. If Savage Avengers 17 out of 5 stars, I'm giving it
Solid 4 for me. I'm going to do 4.
I'm going to do 3.89.
Oh, okay. I get that. I think that makes sense with what you said.
Sticking with it, are you going to read 18?
I think I might. If it's like a whole different team and something's changed, or it gets back into, basically, if I have to read about the King in Black, you know, like putting some fun people together and having them go out and kill things, that could be fine. You know, I don't know what the overall arc really is, so maybe it's not good. Who knows? But I'll try the next one, sure.
I might if it's a slow week.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can go. Every patron can vote to book the rundown. Thank you this week, patrons, for voting. But if you have the $5 or higher level, you get your own superpower live in the show as a way of thanks. Let's do it.
Gregory Gerads, spelled the same as Mitch, could be Gerads.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, having to deal with this, has the ability to perfectly pronounce all place names and people names. There's it would make an excellent podcaster. There's no cultural embarrassment on how to pronounce things.
Listen, if you think it's bad now, go back and listen to the early days of the podcast. Not just ours, all of the podcasts, because that was the first time
anyone had ever said those names out loud outside of the industry.
Or inside their own heads, you know, like it was a minefield.
Well, not so for Gregory.
No.
And also, it has to be a hard G because otherwise it doesn't sound right. Anyway.
Gregory Gerads.
It could be a Norse sort of thing. That's true. Gerad. So perfect pronunciation. No one is ever in an awkward position in a business meeting, for example. Mm-hmm. No one is ever made to feel like, oh, here goes the Western Hemisphere people butchering our names and acting like the pronunciation doesn't matter. No, Gregory's got that all under control. It's just a talent.
And the thing is, it all matters. We just don't know. You know, all you can do is the best you can.
Yep.
Adrian Hosseini. Adrian's power is that perfect cable management.
Are you sure we haven't had that power?
I think we have, but it's important enough issue where we can have multiple people doing it. If we can have 2 Spider-Men, we can have 2 cable management guys because it's a problem.
I was thinking about it just this week, so.
And the thing is, like, it's not like, oh, he hides the cables in like tubes or attached. Like, they're just sort of gone.
Wow.
You know, like they're just sort of not there. And then when you need them, they're there.
Possible.
It's magic.
It's a dongle world, and we're all just living in it.
It's a Hosseini situation, you know. He Hosseini'd it. It's magic.
Man, I could.
Maybe you've got cables next to brick, and you can't hide them, or you've got walls you can't cut into. It doesn't matter. They're just gone. It's almost like it almost appears as if you're totally wireless, but you're not. But how does it happen? Hosseini.
Broadcast energy transmitter.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for Gregory and Adrian for being patrons. We do appreciate it. I think we can do an email or 2, depending on how long we go.
Yeah. Let's see how that goes. Go with the first one. If not, we will do the next one next time, but we'll see.
Blake Chastain from the Exvangelical podcast says, I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks since Josh mentioned the similarity of the last few Marvel events, War of the Realms, Empire, King in Black, all involving a world-scale alien invasion. Timely question, Blake. What if this was viewed as a metaphor for the unrelenting pace of crises in the real world? I know your show doesn't engage directly with politics, current events, but we're all living through this pandemic, and here in the U.S. that's accompanied by so many other overlapping crises. Whether seen from the POV of heroes and villains or just the innocent bystanders, maybe we can aspire to be like the people in these stories who are resilient in the face of so many conflicts. Conversely, maybe we can just admit we are exhausted and need a goddamn break. That's for damn sure.
Yes. There's no, there can be no, that is an unpolitical statement.
We are all exhausted and need a goddamn break.
Yeah.
Not a single person in the country can say otherwise, or in the world. I think it's a stretch, only because these events go back years. Sort
of. I mean, I would say that it's very. I mean, this is the case in all fiction, but it's certainly in comics, because they're created on such a sort of quick turnaround time. I think it's almost impossible for real world zeitgeist to not bleed into what's going on.
No, I don't know enough about King of Black to know if it is or not. I just don't know enough.
But I think in sort of a larger overall thing, I don't think it's conscious is what I think. It is, in some cases it is. But if you look at, Marvel from the Fantastic Four area on, the concern there is, radiation and nuclear war.
Sure.
And,
yeah, absolutely.
And communism, fear of the other, which is what sort of, the monsters and, one of the reasons they connect with people is that the people making them are tapping into, and I do think it's largely unconscious, the thing that everybody is worried about at that time.
General anxiety.
Yeah, and you see, we've seen a massive uptick in the past few years of post-apocalyptic, stories in comics. They're a dime a dozen now. That seems to keep happening. There's obviously no shortage of political, and societal. There's a word I can't think of right now. Just the idea that where power is and how it affects people, and that comes in. But so that's really specific stuff, and I tend to not like that so much because it's a little on the nose, and sometimes people need to work through it, and that helps other people read it. Mm-hmm. But I think that when you start to see these things that happen over and over, like there's this invasion, there's this everybody has to fight off of this thing, and it's hard. It's hard not to make a connection, And I think maybe that's something that comics does better than some other media, just because it's much more immediate. Mm-hmm. A comic is conceived and it's on the stands, usually within 6 months tops. Mm-hmm. Not all of them, but your sort of regular workaday stuff. And how do you not? Especially now that social media is connecting. I think social media is the thing that's actually making all these things more similar than not, because people are all being part of the same conversation in a way that they weren't. Whereas Steve Ditko is sitting in his studio reading whatever he's reading is separate, and you get what came out of him.
I don't think you're wrong. I mean, obviously, you're not wrong about how generalized anxiety creeps into work and current events creeps into work, whether it's conscious or not. However, I don't know. I'm not feeling it from. I just feel like the invasion is a trope. It's a comic trope that's been there for decades, and they just Marvel for whatever reason keeps going to that well. And I don't know. I'm not feeling the real world. I mean, I think the one that maybe the closest one that we didn't read was the Captain America one, where where sort of the evil leader took over. I think that would be the closest. And Nick Spencer is extremely political.
Yes,
person and writer, and that'd be the closest I would come to saying that one is clearly influenced by current events. But I don't know. I don't know. I can't really put Empire. I can't really pin like what was the real world influence for Empire. Do you know what I mean?
I think though that
I guess that's similar. It was a real evil leader who wasn't. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just having a hard time seeing it. I'm not saying you're wrong.
I think you're being too specific though. I think that there's a larger sense of doom and dread that sort of happens, and that gets manifested into these kind of stories. The fact that these are all the same, I think that's a different thing. I think it's an editing problem. Mm-hmm. But the stories tend to have a feel to like there's not patriotic stories right now. As we were going through the 60s, it went from nuclear, and then it was space race stuff, and it was, but it wasn't even Kirby was doing it very specifically a lot of times, but there's a different tone to things. Right now, the tone to everything is everything gets destroyed. That's what keeps happening in comics over and over and over and over again, is that everything is imperiled and everything gets destroyed. Now, for many people, that the alien invasion or whatever, that's the tool for that. But it's some version of that is happening in everything.
I mean, that was the thing for years in movies too. You have disaster movies or alien invasion movies every year. Once the technology was able to do that.
But it's not even fighting off the threat. The story here starts with it happened. You know what I mean? Like we're past the point. Like nobody saved the world in these. That's how stories have been more so in the past, is that, the stuff came through, they fought off the Starro and saved everything. Mm-hmm. Whereas this, like, everything is already destroyed and is shit, and now what do we do? It's that subtle change that I could be making it up. I could be reading it into it. That's what I feel like the zeitgeist part of it is.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily thinking you're saying wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think also people like spectacle. And I think, the movies figured that out with, not starting with, but really coming into its own with Independence Day when the technology was able to really convincingly portray it. Even like Twister on a smaller level.
And now so many cars have been destroyed in the name of that.
Right. It's like, you get sort of bored with the destruction. I don't know. I think there's obviously generalized anxiety. We all have it. We're all traumatized, even in ways we don't even understand, I think. We're not going to understand for years.
Yeah.
And obviously it's going to seep into art. That's how it works. So I'm not saying it's not there. I'm also not saying it's not there. How's that for an equivocation?
Yeah. That's heavy.
Yeah.
I think
if we do the Dallas question, we have to do the second question because we don't have time for the first question.
No, I want to do it. Let's do it. Let's leave it for next week.
Okay. Dallas will answer your question next week.
Yeah. Good question.
Dallas is a name, not a place, but it's both. Contact@ifanboy.com is where you can write in. A lot of great emails this week.
Yes, absolutely. I was really happy about
plethora of choices. So we'll get to you, Dallas, and we'll get to hopefully on more people. Let's talk about what's coming up or what's happened. Although outside the show, we had our media explode. We talked about The Mandalorian, me and Josh and Ron. Great conversation. Really enjoyed it. Love talking about The Mandalorian. And so that was last month's media explode.
He's no good to me dead.
No, I don't know what we're going to talk about next month, but we will because that's how it works. Talksplode
will be coming up in February this time because that's when I can schedule it with a comic book creator that I'm excited to speak to. Which is a prerequisite to being on the show.
Alan Moore.
It's not Alan Moore. I've talked to so many people. I have a ton of experience with it. I would be terrified to talk to Alan Moore.
As you should.
I know.
As you should. I think anyone should.
Yeah. But every time I've ever heard him talk, seems like a lovely guy.
It's funny because, February is the shortest month. It's going to be a really busy, perhaps too busy month of podcasts. We'll have our media explode. We'll have our Talksplode. We'll have Booksplode. Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics by Tom Scioli is the Booksplode discussion. And we're going to have an animated Brain Trust show in February as well, talking about Batman, Soul of the Dragon, the 70s Kung Fu story that we're all excited to watch and talk about. So it's going to be at least 8 shows in February, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 8 shows in February.
And a hangout.
So the shortest month is going to be packed full of content for you to enjoy.
Also, apparently at the end of it, I'll be fucking 44.
Head over to ifanboy.com. That's where you'll find all these shows, as well as all the old writing we did in the vast history, years and years, 13 years of comic. Well, it's not all there because we did have a server disaster early in the days. We'll say 10 years of comic writing. It's all found there. Great writers. It's fun to go back and relive those times. And it's all at ifanboy.com. Follow us at facebook.com/ifanboy or follow ifanboy on Twitter, ifanboy comics on Instagram. That's where you can find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out. Individually, we are CS Kilpatrick on Instagram, J.A. Flanagan on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com.
You are not my fake friends. It was a joke. I'm sorry.
YouTube.com/ifanboy is where you can keep up to date with all the old shows we've been uploading, including this week, which I'm going to look at right now, which includes, where are we?
It's right. It's right.
Well, those are 2 of the 3. You don't have the third show.
Oh, that looked older.
We did a comic book voicemail show. Always love doing those. We did a mini on the book of the month, which was Hellboy, the library edition. And then the Friday show we did a spotlight on Why the Last Man. So there you go. So it's a tiny book from 10 years ago you may not have heard of. Why the Last Man.
If you like the unadaptable property. If you like this show, which is amazing because it should have been the easiest show to ever make.
Yeah. I think it'll happen eventually.
Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, they're shooting it right now, I think. Yeah, they are.
If you like this oh, really? It's actually
they're shooting a pilot right now, yeah.
Well, that worked out great for Preacher. If you like this show, write a review or leave a star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Now there's Amazon Podcast and Audible and Spotify, so there's places that you can rate them other than that. Do that for this show if you haven't, and do it for other shows because they all need that support. And if you love them, it helps greatly for the people making them to know that, and to know how many people are doing that. Better yet, tell folks about it directly if that's a thing that you can do. If you talk to people, if you you're in your bubble and you're rolling down the road, you can press your bubble up to somebody else's bubble and be like, "Hey, do you listen to this podcast?" and then
they'll say what?
Of course, your mail carrier be like, "I was born in it." Anyway,
well, the thing is now the guideline is to wear 2 masks. So
yeah,
and listen, we are very, very, very pro wearing masks. However, that doesn't mean we can't make jokes about it.
Sure.
Making jokes about it doesn't mean we're not pro mask. But it is very difficult to talk through 1 mask, let alone 2. Like whenever the guy at the grocery store tries to talk to me, I'm like, we can't. This is not going to happen. Like,
are they behind the plexiglass?
They got
too?
the plexiglass. And it's like,
Yeah.
I got 2 masks on. We can't have a conversation about what I just bought because none of us understand what's going on.
Yeah. I keep hearing news reports, like little radio bits of Nancy Pelosi, and I'm like, why is she slurring? Oh, it's through the mask. That and she's 80.
Hey,
tired.
As a sidebar, you mentioned Preacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I would Google Preacher while you talked.
No, don't.
And it took me 3 levels to get to a comic image.
I can't. It's so bad. I want a Google filter that I can take out all movie and TV versions of the comic book shit that I need to search for, because it's such a problem. And I'm offended for it. I want to be able to search for Preacher and not have to add Steve Dillon. And even when I do.
Yeah. Or comics.
Oh, God. It's so annoying.
Anyway.
You know what? We can't end it like that. I mean,
no, I was going to say, if you like the show, tell your friends. Or did you do this part? I was Googling Preacher. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I kind of did that.
Okay,
no, we talked about that. And then we were like, yeah, you should wear your mask. And we were like, we also acknowledge that wearing them sucks.
Yeah,
like,
no one likes it.
You can hold those 2
We've all got mask knee. Like it's all annoying, but important.
Listen, if the plant creatures are invading, it's annoying, but you got to fight them off.
Right. Exactly. While wearing your mask. I assume the plant creatures will put pollen or spores out and it'll require masks.
Totally.
Yeah. If they're any kind of good invaders, they'll have that plan in place.
Okay, you're Connor.
I'm Josh. Oh, wait.
Stay safe out there. Wash your hands, wear your mask, do those things, and be good to each other. And thanks for listening. Bye.